Yeah, because we've got this. Okay, yeah, okay. You want both?
Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. My name is Amali, and I'm the events director here at Books Are Magic. We've got two available chairs up here. One in the
Don't be
very
shy.
front. Don't be
Oh,
shy.
hey.
Nice. So, we are so excited to have Meera Sodha and Julia Turshen with us tonight to celebrate the launch of Meera's newest cookbook, Dinner.
Thank you.
If you came to this event on an empty stomach, I'm warning you now, you will leave absolutely ravenous because this book is full of delicious recipes that will make you completely rethink your evening routine and inspire you to try new things in the kitchen, even when you're feeling a little bit lazy. Before we dive into tonight's discussion, I just have a few logistics to point out for how this event is going to go. Then I'm going to read some quick bios and we're going to dive right in. So first up, we will be doing a hand-raised audience Q&A towards the end of the discussion. So please start thinking of questions to ask and hold on to them. After the talk tonight, Meera will be around to sign and personalize your books at the alcove next to where you checked in. We'll let you know where and when to start lining up for that. And finally, if you're joining us virtually on the YouTube live stream, we would love to encourage you to buy a copy of Dinner online using the link in the live stream description. So, Meera Sodha is The Guardian's new vegan columnist and the best-selling author of Made in India, Fresh India, and East. Meera received the Guild of Food Writers Cookery Writing Award and was named the Fortnum and Mason Cookery Writer of the Year for her work in The Guardian. And as I mentioned earlier, Julia Turshen joins Meera in conversation tonight. Julia is the best-selling author of What Goes With What, Now and Again, Feed the Resistance, Small Victories, and Simply Julia. She hosts the IACP-nominated podcast Keep Calm and Cook On, and is the founder of Equity at the Table, an inclusive digital directory of women and non-binary individuals in food. She lives in the Hudson Valley with her spouse and their many pets. That's all for me. Please join me in giving Julia and Meera a very warm welcome.
This is so exciting. I'm so happy to be here with you, and thank you all for coming on this weirdly cold night. And thank you to the people through this telephone who are watching online. Yeah, welcome to New York.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
We were talking a little bit before, but I think just for this particular audience, I would just love to know, since you touched down, what has your favorite bite been in Brooklyn?
Good.
First thing to come to mind.
So the first thing to come to mind is a meal that I ate at the Four Horsemen, and what did we eat there, Andrew? It was so good. My mind's gone blank. I love the radicchio salad. I was just saying the flavors were so precise. They were on a pinhead. They were so good. But we went to Kisa yesterday. That was fabulous. Korean food. Yeah, you're nodding. Nods, good. And where else? I mean, everything I've eaten has been absolutely fabulous. I hate saying this because I love my city, London, but the food is like hands down incredible here. I went to King. That was insane.
That's so good.
Yeah, it's all been Sailor last night. That was also very wonderful. I mean, I've eaten well.
Yeah.
I'm amazed my trousers still fit.
Yeah, my next question is, where is your suit from?
Cause.
Yeah, I was thinking about, you and I do similar work. I think we're both home cooks who write for other home cooks, and being on a book tour for a book that's about home cooking is such a funny thing because you are not at home and you're not cooking. And so I'm wondering how that feels for you, being here right now, being kind of not tethered to your kitchen. Is it fun? Is it scary? Is it liberating?
Oh, it feels fabulous.
Yeah.
Like I love it. Like I think the world is collapsing around us. Sorry to remind everyone briefly. But
I heard about it. Yeah.
What's so nice about this sort of thing is being in a room with everyone who wants to be in this room and talk about food. And we can get endlessly geeky, or we can remind ourselves about like the transformative powers of food and how it brings people around a table. It's just it's a lovely thing to do.
Yeah.
And so this is like my favorite thing to do. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love being on this side of it. So speaking of sort of world collapsing, power of food,
Yeah.
that part, I was wondering, I was really struck by the introduction of the book is just, let's just take a second. It's just so good. I love this book. The recipes are just amazing. And the introduction, I was very struck by this part. I wrote it down, so I got it right. You wrote, "This wasn't the book I had thought I'd write next, but following a difficult personal time and much reflection, it became the book I felt I must write." Sharing as much or as little as you want, could you tell us more about that moment of why you felt this was the book you had to write?
Sure. Yeah, so this book was born out of a difficult experience, and so in 2021, I woke up one day, but I couldn't get out of bed, and I didn't want to cook. I fell out of love with food overnight, and in fact, I fell out of love with life. There's a happy ending to this, by the way. If you just hold on in there. And the sort of move away from food, like not taking pleasure in it, was very discombobulating for me, because it's how my mum communicated how that she loved me. And my grandma, when I came back from my honeymoon, she didn't say, "Did you have a great honeymoon?" She said, "Are you eating?" Like wanting to know what the state of my new marriage was. And that's also how I communicate my love for other people. I mean, my sense of direction is terrible, but I can smell my way across the city. And my memories are all hang around food. And so I knew I needed to get out of this place and fast, but I didn't know how. So I stepped back from work. For months this went on, and Hugh, my husband, was looking after our newborn baby. She was born just after the peak of the pandemic. Our toddler, he was looking after his own job. We had no other support, and he started to crack one day. Like, that's often what happens with someone who's going behind everybody who's having a bad time is somebody else who's also having a bad time. And he said, "Please, I'd love it if you could cook for me." And it wasn't him turning into a 1950s husband. He was like, I'm struggling here and I need some help. And I ran into the kitchen and I grabbed a pan and some red lentils, coconut milk. I keep all my aromatics in the freezer drawer. And I made this like Malaysian dal curry, which we both love, and we ate buckets full of in Singapore. And I was doing it for him, but I felt something shift. It's like when you see an amazing piece of art, or you hear something and it really resonates with you, and my lungs filled full of air and my fingers felt fizzy, and I just thought there's something different here. And we both sat in silence and ate this meal. And I was like, maybe it's just I'm cooking out of pleasure. I think that's what's happened, is that for the last 10 years since I wrote Made in India, which was a family cookbook, I've been cooking for incremental gains. I've been cooking because I have a column. I was cooking because I had book deadlines. I was thinking about what you want to eat. It wasn't led from my belly and my heart and what I wanted to eat. And so often I'd be perfecting like a lime pickle recipe, and my girls would come home from nursery and there wouldn't be dinner on the table for them. They couldn't eat the lime pickle. And so I'd just make them a quick pasta. So my work life was quite out of sync. And I think my identity, post therapy, this is what we worked out, that my identity was very much tied to achievements and work. Maybe it's the same for other children of immigrant families. And my parents certainly came into the country, did an amazing job of raising us. But boy, did they show us that if we worked hard, we could achieve anything. And I really wanted to show them that I was going to work hard and achieve things. And then I couldn't see outside of that. And so when I started cooking, I was writing everything down in this orange notebook that I keep, that I'm going to give to Arya and Yogi, my two daughters, one day. Just family food, Nigella's custard cake, stuff I wouldn't publish, just stuff that we eat as a family like every other family does. And I just started asking myself, what do I want to eat? And just leading from pleasure. And the notebook filled up. And it was very simple food. It didn't happen quickly or overnight. We're talking about a lot of eggs. There's a lot of egg recipes in here, like fried eggs. I find eggs comforting, and maybe other people do too, but they're very simple recipes. And what I realized was I didn't care about cooking breakfast or lunch. It was all about dinner. And this is very simple, but I realized that dinner had this transformative power, and that just planning it helped me, I felt very grounded and comforted just planning it. And then I felt a sense of achievement just going from A to B and making something from scratch in that way that is very pleasurable when you make something. And then I started sharing this simple dish, and it could have just been like a simple pasta recipe with like friends and family that we were allowed to see. And I really loved that experience where it kind of had this divide between work and family and friends. And previously I'd been like, oh, you're coming over for dinner? Let me show you what I can do. I'm going to flex my muscles and make like 4 different things, and I'll be running up and down like a jack in the box, like finishing things off. And now I don't do that at all. And then I thought, something's here. And my editor called, and she's like, just checking in. And I said, I think there is something here. I think I really want to write this book about dinner. Like, this orange notebook had filled up fast, and it was like this truth, you know. Food writers, I think you can come across, especially via Instagram, it's like, oh, we go to the farmer's market. Did you know we go to the farmer's market? We buy everything in season, only in season. Like, we never eat tinned corn. No. And that's bullshit, for want of a better word, isn't it?
Canned corn is delicious. It's so good. It's so much sweeter. I mean, like, for 1 month, a few weeks of the year by my house, the fresh corn's good. Otherwise, no. A can is amazing. Anyway, sorry.
Amazing.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
And I felt great pleasure in being like, this is how I really eat. You know, the other books, I still cook from the other books, but like, this is really how we eat at home. So there's no gap, you know, there's no bridge. It's me, it's my home. If you came over, it's what I'd be cooking.
Where is the orange book right now? I feel very protective of it. Is it in a safe place? Where is it?
Just by the microwave at home, where it normally is.
It's not like locked up. It feels like a very important object. I love the story of basically how this book was born. I'm wondering about having faced this sort of, tough personal moment that sounds like, a lot of burnout, and I understand the pressures of the various deadlines you're under, and I mean, I really get it. I feel like when this thing that you love to do becomes your work, and then I'm very familiar. So I'm wondering if I'll get that. Oh, you're so nice. Thank you. Did you feel reluctant at all to turn the orange book into this cookbook and to sort of go through this process of publishing?
Not reluctance, maybe I definitely felt like it was a huge experiment, because the books that I'm an Indian food writer, a British Indian food writer in the UK. If I wrote an Italian cookbook, it probably wouldn't sell. Like, I need to stay within my area. And before, I've written geolocated books, like Made in India, Fresh India, East. And this one was an experiment, but I think I needed that, because that is also the truth about how I eat. I live in London. It's a very international city. Like, Hugh and I go to the Malaysian cafe down the road when we go out to eat, and there's out for Szechuanese food and all sorts, we love Italian food. And so I just thought, I think it's important to write this book and see what happens. And I didn't really know how people would react. Some of the recipes are in The Guardian, and so I suppose I had the privilege of having some insight, because we live in the modern world, and if you've written something that is horrible, people will let you know.
You'll know.
So there was that, I suppose. So there's some confidence there, isn't there?
And so the sort of idea of like, it's worth doing. And I'm gonna go for it. You're in this sort of interesting position of, your book has been out in the UK where you live for a while now. We have the pleasure of introducing it into our kitchens now, but the book has been out. So how is it going? Is it what you thought it would be? Was it worth it?
It's so funny, because I was talking to Kim, my publicist, who's at the back of the room, about this earlier, and I was like, if somebody asked me that question in the UK, I'd be like, yeah, it's going all right. But you were like very humble about it, and whereas over here, I'm like, yeah, people are cooking the hell out of it. The sales are great. It's so successful.
But how do you feel? Do you feel?
Yeah, I feel I'm thrilled, because it feels like, I think when I first stepped into being a food writer, I felt like there were shoes that were very big, and like I felt like a pretender to the throne, and like always trying hard to get people to notice that I could do something. And this feels like it's a very me book. It's very real. It's like a truly authentic thing. It's a little bit counterculture in that, like, you might cook something. I can promise you it will be delicious. You may not want to put it on Instagram, like it will be comfort food. And people really have been posting things on Instagram, and I cannot repost them. But they have been cooking the hell out of it.
Yeah. I feel like I don't know, this is a whole other road we could go down, but yeah, food, like in the age of social media, we get away from, I think, sometimes the stuff that just tastes the best.
Right.
Like it doesn't always look great.
Yes. And
that stuff is really the stuff I want to eat. Yeah.
Truly. And also what I fear is that, so Hugh and I host a lot, and we don't get invited to our friends a lot. There's some friends that host us. There's nothing wrong with us. You know? But I think that what might happen is that Instagram sets this artificial bar, and it's like, oh, someone's coming over, must cook ottolenghi, and absolutely kick on myself. I love ottolenghi, we're friends, colleagues, and but I have seen it happen. You know, and I think if I had one message, it's like to that, you know, I think the bar is always high for the host, but it's actually very low. For the guest who's just really happy not to be in their house, who's really happy to share the pasta recipe with you, is really happy that you found some nice cheese in a local deli and put some nice bread out with it. Yeah. And so I don't think it needs to be complicated, but Instagram can make you feel like a failure before you've even started. Yeah.
It's doing its job. That's what it wants to do. No, I love that message. And I think so much of, I feel like I don't know if this lands with you, but it seems to me the mission of your book is sort of encouraging this simplicity because it allows you to be together.
Yes.
And I feel that too. Like I mean, I obviously love food. I've devoted my whole life to it. I really don't care what we eat. Like, I just want to go.
Right.
Like, I'm so lucky to have dinner with Meera after this. And I was like, oh, I don't care where we go. Like, I'm just happy to have dinner with you. I'll go, well, we can have pizza. I don't care. Like, it really,
agree.
That's not a question. We just, we agree on that. We agree on that. Oh, here's my question. This is so funny. We share the same understanding about home cooking. It is, as you write, an ingredient for a life well lived. What does that mean to you, a well lived life?
It means something very different to what it did do before I broke down. I think a life well lived actually means more time living and less time working. It means stopping work at like 3 o'clock so I can collect my girls. It means seeing you, hanging out with Andrew, who's like a longtime friend of mine who's here. It's really, it's kind of putting joy first, and just understanding that like life is temporary, and and that it's important to try and live in any form that comes. And listen, I'm not like I'm, you know, I don't know where I sit on the privilege scale. Like, I have to pay a mortgage. I still have to do that. So I still need to, you know, but I'm choosing to earn less money and do less work so that I can be more at the moment. And that might change because I'm like, where's my hustle gone? Maybe I look at all the merch around New York City. I'm like, I want merch. And I talk to people about Substacks. I'm like, I should have a Substack. You know, it's very tempting to do all of these brilliant things. And to be creative, because creativity is pleasure, right? I mean, do you love writing recipes? I love it too. Like, it's ingredients are just like paints, so it's a fun thing to. I completely forgot what the question is.
You answered it beautifully. It was about a well-lived life, and I think your response is perfect. And I think to what you said earlier about this book being born out of this time in your life, and then sort of using pleasure to guide you in the kitchen. It sounds like, you're living your well-lived life.
What
well
does
done.
It mean? I want to know what you think.
Oh, well, I just feel like we're the same person. This whole thing. And I really agree with leaning into the sort of less work, more living, which is really hard when you love your work.
It's hard. And also when you work
which isn't
yourself,
like a complaint.
Freelancing.
Yeah, I don't mean to complain about that, but it gets confusing.
It does. And also you turn around and there's like 100 million TikTokers who are also posting their recipes online. And it's hard to know, like, what do you need to run to keep up with them? Do you slow down? Like, you know, how to find your happy place, your comfortable place there.
Yes,
Yeah.
my thumbs don't work that fast.
Yeah.
I don't participate in TikTok.
No,
Is
me
where I
neither. Me
landed
neither.
on that. I consume some of it.
Yeah, it's
Well,
fun.
through my spouse, Grace. I don't have TikTok on my phone, but Grace, we do this thing
Yeah.
where Grace collects videos. And then we sit down and Grace says, "Can I show you the funnies?"
I love that.
So that's how I see TikTok, is through my
Okay.
spouse's phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love that you put this front and center in the book. That it's an ingredient for this
Mm.
well-lived life. And yeah, I don't know that I have the answer to it, but I think every day is a day to try and
Mm.
figure it out. But having work a little bit less at the center of it, I think what you're speaking to, yeah, I mean, just really hits home for me. And I think I once heard this writer, Sarah Franklin, say something that has stayed with me for years about figuring out what size you want your life to be.
Mm.
And I think the older I get, the more I realize, like, I like a smaller life than I realized.
Mhm.
Anyway, this is not about me.
But I agree with that too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to talk a little specifically about the
Sure.
book. And I was really into how you organized it.
Okay.
And I think because the book is called Dinner, so clearly the recipes are for dinner. I mean, you could eat them whenever. So that took away the organizing, am I going to do breakfast, lunch, dinner? So you've got that out of the way. But then there's so many different ways, so many different directions you could have gone in,
Mhm.
and you chose to do it sort of by ingredient. And I'm just wondering how that came to be.
Mhm.
How did you translate the orange book of
Mhm.
notes into this, and how did you decide how to organize it?
I think that's a good
Yeah.
question, because it is such a fundamental way about how people get into the book. And even that has changed in this world of AI and Google, because you can find things very easily. But I think when I thought about it, I was like, well, how do I think about dinner every night? And usually what happens is I kind of flip between the vegetable drawer or the store cupboard, and I'll have a look at what needs cooking. My husband, he keeps on buying bunches of celery week after week. So typically it's celery. And the girls both eat broccoli. So typically there's broccoli or a bag of carrots. And so those three vegetables feature quite heavily in this book. And I'm quite a store cupboard person. I grew up in the middle of the countryside. My mum cooked the most fantastic Indian food. And she had these big jars of different pulses and lentils and things like that. And I love tins of tomatoes and tins of coconut. I love tins. I'm very big on them. And so largely, if you, let me see if I can do this without getting it to fall over.
I can help.
So it was also organized alphabetically, but you guys with your eggplants messed up. Because it was aubergines, broccoli and other brassica, eat your greens, eggs and cheese, fungi in the family of onions, a pocket full of pulses, and then root shoots, sweet squash, pantrying, tomatoes and other fruit, and side shows. There's 10 side dishes and 10 puddings in there. And then there's other ways in, because also sometimes you feel like a salad, some noodles, a ramen, a curry, I don't know, fried rice, whatever it is that you feel like. And so what I always do, and I've always done it with my books, is have alternative contents. One is seasonal, just to keep up the myth that food writers only cook seasonally. Very important. And the other one is by it's date night, or I'm going on a picnic. Two picnics, as some people in the room might have gone to. Sorry,
it's an inside joke.
And that's what you feel like. Well, it's like bung it in the oven. So your friends are coming over. You want to chat with them. You're running after a toddler. Let the oven do the work. Or you've just got a one-pan thing. You've got home from work late. You've got 10 minutes to put something on the table. So the quick things. And so I probably am a people pleaser at heart, working on that. But in terms of how it manifests in the book, I think it's quite helpful, because there's always ways in, which is always, and the index is always great too. I always have an extended index in the books, so that you can search by ingredient, which I think is really important. You're nodding, right? It's very important.
Yeah, I'm nodding as well. You do a lot for for your reader. And I think that's very appreciated. You just said about just kind of throwing something in the oven. I wrote down another favorite line of yours. You said, give a man a frying pan and he can stand by the stove and make himself dinner. Give a man some baking sheets and he is free to sit on the sofa and watch Netflix while dinner cooks itself. It's just brilliant.
True story.
Yes. So what are considerations like this that you make for our fellow home cooks when you write recipes?
Tell me again. What's it?
Like, what are some other things like that that you were thinking about in your recipe
what do I think
writing
about?
for home cooks?
Oh yeah, I have a strict.
Like if you can put it in the oven rather than the
yeah.
pan. Yeah.
I'm more like I think when I first started to cook, I needed to get hold of all the ingredients, and my mum was saying, you all need to go out and buy turmeric and Kashmiri chili and all these things. And I lived near a big Sainsbury's, which is one of our major supermarkets in the UK. And I've always just thought it's very important. Like, people won't cook my recipes if they can't find the ingredients. And so I try and write recipes for myself, but for other people, where like 95% of the things you can buy in like a major grocery store. So you're not running around. And I use those things again. And I also try, and this is like trial and error over time, to keep my recipes to under 12 ingredients, because I don't know why there's an 8 ingredient recipe in this book that I'm very proud of, but it's I think it's very important not to, people, it's not like there aren't projects in there and step-by-step things, but I like to try and keep things. I want people to cook from the book. And if I want people to cook from the book, they need to be able to access the ingredients, follow the steps very easily. It's got to be easy for them to find what they need to get to. And they can't be stuff that they're going on a wild goose chase for. Yeah.
What is the 8 ingredient recipe?
Okay, you need to make that one. But you need to buy Laugama chili crisp. So it's Ben Benton Strikes Again. It's in the eggplant chapter. And it's ludicrously delicious. It's braised aubergines and celery. I can say this because it's Ben's recipe, and so I'm not blowing my own trumpet. But braised, I don't love raw celery. I mean, sometimes I like it, but braised celery, my gosh, it's like sort of stroking a pussycat, and it's just like the inner sweetness comes out, and you're like, oh, it's so soft and lovely. And it's not what you would say of raw celery at all. And then it's got Szechuan chili, Szechuan pepper, and fennel seeds, and rice vinegar in it. And so it's spiky, it's like kind of oily, but in the best way, saucy. It's very good.
Yeah, it looks amazing. That was definitely, well, I mean, the recipe title drew me in because I was like, what is this?
When he strikes, he strikes. Yeah, it's like a full bullseye.
Yeah, I know, and it sounds fantastic. It's so when I had, I feel like a little bit of perhaps my equivalent of the moment in your life you described, and I decided to, for a moment, kind of step away from cookbooks and everything. I went and worked at a vegetable farm, and everyone who worked at the farm hates celery. and I was like, just cook it. It's so sweet. And I was going on and on. I was like the celery PSA
pusher.
Yeah. So it's so funny to hear about its role kind of in your life, but also in that recipe. Yeah, that recipe looks great. You also use so many ingredients that I think help kind of give us a little bit of a head start in the kitchen. There was one recipe that in the introduction to it, the recipe includes both kimchi and gochujang in the recipe. And you said homemade is not always better. So what are some ingredients like those that you depend on to kind of just introduce flavor immediately that don't require work on your end?
Yeah, so I cook like this because I have 2 young kids and I don't want to spend all night cooking. But also in Southeast Asia and East Asia, having pre-made condiments isn't frowned upon. In the UK, if you use like a ready-made Thai paste and you serve that to friends, like, you might not feel good about yourself doing that. Or it might be frowned upon by the real cooks who go to the farmer's market.
They sound boring. I'm just gonna say.
So I gochujang kimchi, exactly. I think they are very brilliant. I call these sleeping giants because they just live between the store cupboard and the fridge. and they really pull their weight as an ingredient. So you could have a series of vegetables and some rice, and maybe some soy sauce and some like nori that's been in the cupboard for ages, and then you can fry some eggs. And I have like one of the things that Hugh and I eat is fried eggs, and just like soy butter and mirin sauce, and it's so good.
Delicious.
It's very delicious. It's very simple. It's very easy. Crucially, the whole family eats it. And so soy sauce, kimchi, gochujang, mango chutney. I fry paneer in mango chutney, and that's great. Really, really good. But also I could add sambal oelek, which is it's almost like a fresh chili paste. It's sometimes cut with vinegar or salt, but it tastes very zingy and zangy. And so you can, instead of buying all of the chilies from Khalistians or wherever you buy them from, you don't have to do that. You can keep this jar in the fridge and just add it in. And you might not think you like hot food, but you may like a little bit. So you can add it in a quarter of a teaspoon at a time. But the thing about chilies, and I'm not saying don't buy fresh chilies, but they are inconsistent. And people say bite the end. It's like, really? Do I have to? And whereas this is a consistent ingredient. And so why not? You know,
it's a great point.
Chili crisp. Also great. I love the Lao Gamma one because it's not actually hot. It's just very flavorful, and they have a range. And I mean, to that, I would also add like things like tamarind paste. I think are also brilliant. Yeah.
I didn't write this down in my notes, but I remember it. I think it's in your very first recipe. You wrote something so funny about that when it comes to choosing friends. Like, I'm paraphrasing. I might get this wrong, but it's like, you don't care about like empathy or whatever. You just want to know if someone has a lot of condiments.
Yeah.
And that's how you choose your friends.
I did a little film with Ali Rosen yesterday, who does the potluck videos, and I was like, can I just take a picture in your fridge? I just want to know, like, can we? She's good.
Yeah.
She's good, yeah. She's a lot of condiments.
She's a keeper.
Yeah, she's a keeper.
My best friend, who's American but lives in London, when I last visited her, she was like, okay, while you're here, because my favorite thing to do is like organize other people's kitchens. I just take great pleasure in it. Please invite me over. And she was like, while you're here, you have to help me with my condiments. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And I opened her fridge, and the door, I was like, oh, it's fine. Like, there's a place for everything. It's fine. And then I turned, and like the rest of her fridge was like, there wasn't room to put like a vegetable. Yeah. But I was like, they're all good.
They're all
you can't
good.
get rid of them. How do you organize them? What is your...
I do have. They are actually. No, I mean the condiments aren't organized. They're not like. I'm not like that weird. It's not like alphabetical by color or anything. But they are on the top two shelves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you, even right now, being thousands of miles away from home, like, can you picture your fridge? Do you know where everything is, or do you have to go through it? There's not a wrong answer. I'm just curious.
No, I know where everything is. Yeah. Although we've got two fridges, and this has really helped my marriage because there's, if I'm developing a recipe, I need certain things there, and I might cook them for the family, but I need to choose when I cook them.
Yes.
And if Hugh uses them, it was like game over. So we actually had to like.
I'm very familiar with this. Yeah. We have. I don't know if this is boring, but we have our refrigerator is very old, so we have like a small fridge, but then underneath there's two drawers.
Right.
And one drawer
is just yours.
And one is just for Grace.
Yeah.
Because
I can.
Otherwise, no, it's
tough, isn't it?
It's like sometimes, like, okay, I heard this advice on a very smart show called Love is Blind, which was, cite your sources, but like, don't let roommate problems be marriage problems, which I think is really good advice. But sometimes it's like, oh, you are roommates. Like, sometimes you need to draw a line down the fridge. Where do you keep the second fridge?
It's kind of next to the first fridge.
Okay. So there, you don't have to go to like a basement or something.
No.
Or he doesn't have to.
No.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, sorry. Okay, so in addition to the ingredients you just named, all these sort of, what did you call them? These like
sleeping giants.
Sleeping giants. Thank you. One really struck me because if anyone here has happened to look at my most recent book, I wrote a love letter to Better Than Bouillon, which is like a bouillon paste. And then I read something in your book that I just thought was the smartest thing I've ever heard, which is Marmite vegetable stock. Can you just explain?
So
it's brilliant.
we don't
Yeah.
have better than bouillon, and our vegetable stocks are very much they lean west,
Mhm.
and so they might have thyme or rosemary
Mhm.
in them,
They're sweet.
and they're
Yeah.
sweet. They taste fake. A lot of them they're just not delicious. And a lot of my cooking doesn't lean west; it leans east. And so I'm like, but there's no great, it's not that easy to buy
Mhm.
good dashi either. And so I was just like trying to figure out like how to alleviate my
Mhm.
recipes from that kind of horrible vegetable stock
Mhm.
taste. And I just was thinking of like very potent things like
Mhm.
miso
Mhm.
and Marmite.
Mhm.
And Marmite's brilliant. So I make a risotto with it. And it actually makes a perfect stock because it doesn't give a detectable taste of Marmite as the end result. And so you can add more if you really love Marmite. But if you're like, oh, I hate Marmite, as their famous advertising campaign states that you either love it or you hate it. If you're on the fence, try it, but you have better than bouillon here. So that's good, whereas I can't.
They're similar because they're both mostly made of yeast.
Right.
Like it's like a very similar product. So it's just like this umami.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just thought that was so brilliant. Like a little bit of that with boiling water. I had like one of those, like, why have I never thought of that? So smart.
So annoying.
Damn
you.
No, I'm happy. It's good. So yeah, speaking of the sort of vegetable stock of it all of your recipes are vegetarian. Nearly all of them are vegan.
Yeah.
What do you say to someone who's intimidated by using something like trying to think of an example, like textured soy protein? There's like a lot of that in your recipes, like someone who's never cooked with it.
It's fun. It's tasty. It's like a blank canvas. I think if you're vegan or vegetarian, you have to think about like the things that you might miss, especially if you ate meat and you're kind of moving into a vegetarian or a vegan space. And some of the time, when I'm thinking about the texture that I like, that sort of like porky texture, like pork mince or something like that. I often use like walnuts and mushrooms and whiz them up and blend them. But sometimes I don't feel like doing that. And TVP, like soy mince, we call it in the UK, I think it's great. I don't eat a lot of it because it's processed, but sometimes I do eat some. And I fry it really hard, which is great because it can sort of fluff up. And there's ways to use it. But it's when you're eating it, you're like, it's one of those, wow, it tastes like great. And it's very satisfying. And it's like protein heavy. And you can get some really good quality stuff out there. There's also some really bad quality stuff out there. And so people sometimes think errantly that going vegan or going vegetarian will actually lead to better health. And it can do, but there's also, I mean, especially in the UK, like a lot of the ranges that the supermarkets have brought out are highly ultra processed things, and we now know about ultra processed foods and what the kind of links to health, etc. And I was very lucky to be raised by my mum, who cooked everything from scratch. So I try and sort of find other ways in nature that I think replicate things, because I also think it's more satisfying as well when you eat them.
Yeah. I just think so much of just the actual products, like it's about texture. And then you're adding all the flavor with all the things you talked about before.
Yeah, but I think if you're nervous about anything, I mean, every time you cook something new, it's going to be a little bit scary. Yeah, I think we should front that, because there are people that do get scared by cooking things for the first time, especially if you're putting dinner on the table for somebody else. But I think it's just like cooking is an experiment, and it's a creative process. And it's not there to be this like perfect thing every time. It's there for you to just learn from. Do you like standing at the stove and frying aubergines? Do you like chucking stuff in the oven? Like it should be fun. And I think that's the thing that I try and remember when I feel anything like in the modern world, is that this, like, it shouldn't really feel like this. It should feel fun. And or it should be, and I think that's, I try to lead my recipes with that, so hopefully it will come through.
No, it does come through. It does. I mean, this is a very fun book. Like, your voice comes through, the introductions are funny. I chuckled. But the recipes are just so good. They're exactly what you described in the intro. Like they're just simple. They're things you can make quickly. Just full of flavor. Just really, I mean, it's just a really good book.
Thank
Just
you.
is.
you.
I have one last question before we open it up to
Okay.
all of you for questions, which is you might not be thinking this far in advance, but when you do get home from your trip and you're back home with you and your girls and you're in your kitchen and you're reunited with your condiments, most importantly, what do you think you might make for dinner that night you get home? Or maybe the next night. Maybe you're not cook. Maybe get some takeout the night you get home. Or Hugh can make dinner.
Yeah, that's such a good question. Like, what is it that you go to?
Yeah.
And yeah, yesterday I cooked the kimchi and tomato spaghetti with Ali raisin with the lots of condiments in her fridge, and I really love that dish. And I love it because, like tomato spaghetti, which is what we call it in the UK. Do you call it spaghetti marinara here? Yeah, is like truly one of my favorite things to eat.
It's
like,
the best.
It's the best.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to the River Cafe and spent £38. I kid you not, and that's what I ordered: is tomato spaghetti. I'm like, I can make it, but I want them to make it because it's just what I really want to eat. And so the kimchi, I really love because when it's raw, it can be quite sour, it can be hot, it can be crunchy, it can be soft, whatever. But I don't eat much of it raw. But when you cook it, actually I do eat a lot of it raw. I lied. I don't know why it just came out.
Thank you for your honesty.
But when you cook it, it's like the celery.
Yeah.
Pussycat. Yeah, like caramelized, it becomes sweet, and you add like layers onto it. And with a simple spaghetti marinara, it just adds real depth, and it's delicious. And I make this like pan grattato with like black sesame seeds and pine nuts and breadcrumbs and sesame oil, and just make a ton of it, chuck it over there, and you get the texture and the crunch, and you get like a bit of heat, a little bit of sourness, the sweetness. It's very joyful, but it's very crucially, it was slightly embarrassing because I was like, I haven't actually got anything to do here now, because it's not, you just leave the sauce to cook by itself for 15 minutes. Anyway, let's talk about condiments. It wasn't, it's very easy. It's very simple.
That sounds so good. Is the kimchi in that, does it become part of the sauce? Like, is it blended? Is it in pieces?
Good question. So I drain it, and then just because there's already so much water in the sauce, and you want to reduce it, and put the all the juice back into the jar, and then just chop it like quite finely so it just proliferates through. Yeah.
Love it. I want that right now. Thank you for just writing this book. It is joyful, and I'm excited for all of us to cook from it. Okay, your turn to ask questions. And I'm just going to say this because it might be annoying to all of you, but when you ask your questions, I'm going to repeat them back so everyone at home knows them. So I'm just giving you a heads up that I'll be doing that.
I was able to buy your book in October when I was in London, and I just want to say it's completely amazing.
Thank you.
And exciting to hear you talk about it because it feels the way you describe it, which is very unstressful and welcoming and easy after a hard day of work. So thank you for that. It's amazing. I'd like to hear more about what doesn't make it into the book. Like, how do you decide what recipes can't be a part of the party?
Yeah, so the question
I'm sorry.
there's very lovely comments about your book, and the question is, how do you decide what doesn't go into the book? What is that process?
Well, if I like the taste of something and I think it's good and I've enjoyed it, then I think it makes the cut. And then there's like a second and potentially third pair of eyes. I mean, there's my whole family who are very blunt. And then there's Hannah, who is like such a fan of this bookshop, and she's tested all of my recipes for the last 10 years. And she kind of will look at the recipe to make sure that it's empathetic to the home cook. And that it's also tasty, so it's kind of objective and subjective. And if it doesn't pass Hannah's test, then it doesn't go in. And so Hannah's like a very vital part of my process. Yeah.
Hannah has power.
Yeah, she does.
I saw a hand somewhere in the back. Yes.
What are your favorite things to make for and with your kids?
Oh, great question. What are your favorite things to make for and with your kids? I imagine that might be different. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're pretty happy. I mean, they're kids. They're quite typical children in that they just gravitate towards the sweet stuff. And so they love a lot of the baking. And we have Christina Tosi's book at home, and we have Jamie Oliver's buddy book, and they pick things out of there. But typically, they will help me with stuff, and they'll try anything that I'm cooking. And then they will tell me precisely what they hate about it. And so we end up cooking a lot of pancakes together, if I'm honest, and the American style short stack pancakes. And my 8-year-old now makes them by herself, which I'm amazed by. And she hasn't burnt herself yet, which is also good. But I'm just trying to think, like, yeah, it's baking. I think they find it quite magic because they can do it from end to end, you know, and that's quite empowering for a child. Whereas if you're cooking a lot of the way that I do, they love the chopping bit, but then they get bored because they can't do the cooking on the stove and it's not as interesting to them. And I think that's just the age that they're at. They're like 4 and 8. And so they both want to be cooks when they're older, but they're like, it's got to be pancakes or cookies or cakes right now.
Sounds good. Yes.
So I have a very similar background to yours in that I'm Indian, Gujarati from parents from East Africa. So I
Awesome.
gravitated to your books immediately, and Made in India was, phenomenal, and I've cooked so much out of them. So thank you for that. But your comments around condiments are really interesting to me, and I was wondering if there's a condiment that you're bringing back from here that you sort of so that, and then the second thing is like green chutney, green chutneys, like lily chutney. I now no longer make it, or nor does my mother, because we use the Trader Joe's Zog sauce, which is phenomenal.
Oh,
And it's exactly that. So you may want to have a
good tip.
Anyway, but I was just curious as to what you might be bringing, if there is anything.
That question is so great about the condiments. Is there anything you're going to bring home from here?
I think I might throw that open to the floor and say, like, what should I bring home? I'm trying to think. Andrew was laughing at me the other day because I was like, have you tried these blue diamond flavored nuts?
The smokehouse ones? Those are really good. I love those.
And the salt and vinegar ones, he's like, this is crazy. But I don't know if I've tried that many new condiments, and so I'd be kind of quite keen to know if there's condiments that I should be taking home.
So there's one vote for the Zug from Trader Joe's. Is it in the refrigerator or is it shelf stable?
No, it's in the refrigerator.
Okay, so you might need an ice pack. Okay, we'll figure something out.
There's enough.
This Costco peanut butter is really good.
Costco
Is
peanut
it?
butter.
Okay, we
Crunchy or
haven't-
smooth? Crunchy.
But yeah, don't discriminate.
Good to know.
I think Mike's hot honeys.
Oh, yeah.
Very good.
Like hot honey.
I
Are you able to get it?
Yes, we
Yeah.
went to Paulie G's years ago, and he was like an early adopter of the hot honey.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Now
I'm
it's
a
everywhere.
fan. Yeah. What does everybody use that on though? What do you?
Roasted vegetables.
Oh.
Okay. Pizza. Yeah. I use it on pizza. But I was like, what else should I do with it?
Oh, I have one. Boone chili crisp.
Oh,
It's incredible.
Okay.
They're delicious, extremely flavorful. They make a spicy and like a really spicy, I guess, for lack of a better word. But it's one of the most flavorful chili crisps.
Where can I buy it?
I mean, I don't know if it's not on shelves in a lot of stores. I order it from them directly.
Okay.
Boone chili crisp.
Boone chili
From
crisp.
someone who knows.
Thank you.
Recommendations I would make, one is New York Shoot
Ah,
harissa,
yes.
which is
Okay.
delicious, especially the one with preserved lemon in it.
I love those
And then the other
crowdsourcing.
one I would suggest is Brooklyn Deli. They do.
Yes.
line
Oh, I
of
know
chips.
them.
Yes.
Yes. I love those.
Yeah.
Those are great. Those
Brooklyn
are
Deli's
fantastic.
chutneys
Yeah.
and the New York
New York Shoot.
shoot
New
their
York Shoot,
harissa. Yeah.
Harissa with preserved lemon.
Yes.
Okay. I'm
Any
on it.
other any other condiment suggestions?
Oh.
Question from a very young audience member. What's your favorite food that you make? That's a hard question.
It's a hard question. Okay, I will tell you what my favorite food to eat is, and then I love making it for myself, and that is, do you know a dish called spinach paneer? Yeah, where you like cook the spinach until it's really dark and murky, and it looks like it's lost all of its vibrancy in life, and it's kind of, I like it when it's like that. It becomes like all really, really sludgy, but it tastes so good. So that is my favorite thing that my mum used to cook for me, and I love it so much. And I love it when you use the frozen spinach rather than the fresh spinach.
We had it like last week.
You did?
Oh my gosh. No
You
way.
did? Do you like it? I know it's good, right? It's good. Yeah, I love it. I love it.
I just want to put another vote in for the frozen spinach.
Oh, so good.
Frozen spinach is just one of the best ingredients.
It is, isn't
Yes.
it? Yeah, it's a lot cheaper. It's really
yeah.
broken down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The amount of fresh I've been cooking my whole life. It astonishes me every time I use fresh spinach. How much it shrinks.
right.
I'm always like, what?
I would
And
say
the frozen is that you know what you're getting.
100% of the time that I've spoken to my mother-in-law about spinach, it is always about the shock
Yeah.
of like what happens with the spinach. It's like I bought 3 bags of it, and look, it's like this much.
Yeah.
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 Shocking.
Anyway.
Shocking.
On the other side of that, are there any ingredients that you hate that don't appear in your books that we may not have noticed?
Oh, good question. Any ingredients that you hate that don't appear in your books, and maybe we don't even know you hate them because we don't even see them.
Well, everyone has ingredients that they hate, right? I mean, we're just humans, aren't we? So what do I hate? I don't love. This is gonna be shocking. There's one thing I'm allergic to. So the thing that I'm allergic to is avocados. You won't see much of that in my book. So I can try a little bit of it, and that's about it. So I do put it in recipes and things. I know that other people love it so much. The thing that I'm really fussy about, which might shock you, is potatoes. Yeah. So they have to be cooked in very, very specific ways, or else I can't eat them. Yeah.
What are the ways?
So they have to either be incredibly fudgy, and so there's a potato and chickpea curry that uses sambal olek and coconut milk. I would urge you to make it. It is one of the ones that you won't post on Instagram, but I can guarantee it's very delicious. And you just cook the hell out of it. Same with another, like a saag and potato dish, the Pakistani saag in there. I love both of those because the potatoes sort of disintegrate into the oil and the sauce, and I love them then. Or they need to, that's the way that he cooks them. I think he fries the hell out of them. He does the thing which, I don't know whose technique it was originally, but you kind of parboil them, you fluff them up so there's more surface area, and then he does multiple things with them. Like he fries them really hard, or he bakes them, or he smashes them and he fries them, and it's like they are so crunchy. The surface area has to be, if I were to put some ratios on it or percentages, like 70% crisp, maybe 75 to 80, and then, or like the tiny little fries, but not the big ones. Minus, yeah.
Do you like potato chips, crisps?
They have to be quite slim, quite crispy on the outside. Yeah, so like I like the McDonald's ones. I like the ones that April Bloomfield. They were very, very good.
She knows her way around a potato.
But like the fat chips.
Yeah.
No.
But what about a crisp?
Oh, a crisp?
Yeah.
Oh no, I adore crisps. Okay. Yeah.
Just checking. Okay, we can still be friends.
I don't really consider those to be potatoes. They are insanely. That's like one of my major food groups.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I think we have time for one more question.
Who's it gonna be? Do it.
Well, I would like to know, do you have a favorite flavor of
crisp?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You call them chips though, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So I like salted egg yolk. Very difficult to get hold of, but phenomenally delicious with the curry leaves. I think originates in Singapore. Ivan's is the best brand. Ludicrously expensive when it's exported, but worth it. And I like a very good plain salted crisp that has, and I throw pickled chilies and kewpie mayonnaise over the top of it. That's very delicious.
Oh, that's in here. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Uh-huh.
then I also enjoy a sweet chili crisp, Tyrrell's. I haven't seen it here. Can you buy it here? No. With a sour cream dip that's shop bought, and that is a really addictive combination. And I think maybe the best combination of chip and dip that you can buy.
Sweet chili potato.
Yeah.
Crisp chip.
With a sour cream dip.
A sour cream dip.
Yeah.
Just what's in the sour cream dip? Anything? Or it's just sour cream?
It's just sour cream.
Just dipped in sour cream.
As in, yeah, you just dip it in the sour
cream.
cream.
Just want to make sure I get it right. Sounds so good. Okay, who's picking up potato chips on their way home? Thank you so much. This book is wonderful. It's just so fun to talk to you. And yeah, if you enjoyed listening to Meera, I know I did. It all just comes through in the book. Like your voice is right there. The food is so good. Congratulations. It's wonderful.
Thanks, Julia. Thanks so much for having me, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Thanks.
coming.
Books are magic.
Thank you.
Gonna echo all those thank yous. Thank you to everyone for coming out tonight. Thank you to all of you who asked questions and chimed in with the condiments and the chips. So much great discourse tonight. Thank you, Julia, for moderating such a wonderful conversation. And thank you, Meera, for celebrating this launch with us. So, some final reminders before we wrap up. If you're still with us on the live stream, you can buy a copy by clicking the link in the live stream description. For those of you with us in person, we have plenty of additional copies to purchase at the table where you checked in. I believe we have one more copy of Meera's cookbook East as well, and some copies of Julia's most recent cookbook, What Goes With What. Definitely check those out too. Meera will be around to sign and personalize your books. That's going to be happening where my coworker Molly is pointing to. Yeah, it'll make more sense in a minute. We're going to ask that you all just sit tight while we get Meera set up back there, then line up down this center aisle and curve around to the wall. And that's it. Let's give these two one last round of applause. Thank you all so much.